Border Service Agency is giving other policing agencies within Canada information. I honestly don't have enough knowledge about that to answer specifically, but I will tell you that I was on the Foreign Affairs Committee when Maher Arar was incarcerated, and we fought as a government to bring him back. And I think those kinds of travesties always need to be prevented, and I think the Canadian government should always be there to repatriate Canadians who are incarcerated in foreign countries. I'm sorry, I don't know exactly the case that you're referring to. It sounds like that's within Canada.
It's a general across the board.
Okay, sir.
I've seen a printout that the CBS gives to every agency, and it tells exactly when you leave the country, when you return to the country, and where you've been. That's against the law.
Kathy McClellan just wanted to respond to that briefly.
Yeah, I think what you're referring to is a government that has suddenly become very interested in data collection on all Canadians in all ways. For a government that's gotten rid of the census, which is data that helps us meet the needs of Canadians, we now have an agreement which enables them to track all of us a lot more easily.
This is not an agreement at all.
Okay, I think we've gone as far as we can go with this question. Thank you. There was another question over here that someone had. Yes, sir. The mic is right there in front of you, sir.
Yo tengo un hijo en Colombia.
I have a son in Colombia.
Hace 5 años aplicamos.
5 years ago he applied. Five years ago he applied.
Y la embajada no le ha contestado nada.
And they haven't answered him.
Thank you.
Is that directed to anyone in particular, sir?
Again, I can't comment on a specific situation, but I know that as a member of Parliament, the most gratifying times I ever had was making the system work for people within it. So I think you have the right as a Canadian citizen to go to a member of Parliament's office and ask them to advocate on your behalf, to work with the bureaucracy at Citizenship and Immigration to get those answers. And that seems like a very, very, very important to take every opportunity you can to appeal.
Okay, Peter, you wanted to respond as well.
One of the things that I've been thinking about with respect to Colombia is the ease with which the Parliament of Canada, in particular the Conservative government aided by the Liberals, was able to pass the Colombia Free Trade Agreement. We have many, many cases of human rights abuses in Colombia, and yet our government is really quick and wants to enter into a free trade agreement with that country. It seems kind of odd that we would want to enter in so openly into trade agreements with a country that we know has human rights abuses, and we also know that there are many people who want to come to Canada, particularly to get away from those abuses, likely not unlike your situation. And so certainly, if we're going to be looking at situations like that, we also have to be thinking about the kind of trade relationships we have with countries who abuse people. And not be so quick to enter into those trade relationships without talking about the ramifications with respect to their human rights violations.
Okay, thank you. I think we've had a response from the... Sure.
Thank you very much. No, I think it's important that we don't play politics with this. You know, the family reunification dropped once the Conservatives came in. I think it's important that we recognize that. And I think the problem is that we don't have any Conservative members here to answer questions. So let's not take shots at each other when we don't have the difference.
Your case, sir, is not unusual. Many, many people are waiting even longer. I'm not sure that 5 years is even the average for people to bring spouses, even children. I have learned through MCRS that there are people who have waited, it's unbelievable, 18 and 20 years we've been advocating for someone we did recently. And, you know, sometimes files end up sitting in one office in Mississauga for 8 years, and you need to have advocates around you. Your MP can be an advocate. In Kitchener-Waterloo, actually in Waterloo Region, we are becoming well known as a group of people who cares. We care about the people who come to this country, and we don't want them just dumped any old place, and we don't care anymore about their lives as they settled here and wanting to bring their family. I'm incredibly proud of this community, the churches, and the social organizations that work to help solve those kind of problems. I think MPs
could we stick to
can do more.
answering the questions, please, Kathy? I apologize. I wasn't paying attention when someone mentioned another party, and Andrew's right to call me on that rule. The reason I wasn't paying attention is because we do have some other interpreters in the audience. So if anyone feels that they would be more comfortable asking a question using an interpreter, I can't guarantee that we will have your language, but if you would see Jennifer about that, she would then be able to point you to an interpreter to help you through that process. Yes.
I'd like to answer the question.
I'm sorry, we've already had a response from the NDP on that question, so let's...
For new immigrants, and this question is to all of the candidates. Whether you're aware or not, there's an extreme screening process for people when they're wanting to bring their families into Canada, and I've worked especially amongst the African Caribbean population, and there's extreme medical testing as one example that's done, and often because of a discrepancy in language issues with any of those ethnic nationalities, they aren't aware, specifically when it's in reference to HIV and AIDS testing, they aren't aware of certain medical tests being done, and then they're denied entry into the country. And as we know, in specific countries like Africa, a lot of the mothers have passed, so therefore the grandmothers become the mothers. And so we have the young people here, and their families are not able to come, and because of the testing that they aren't aware of this happening at the time when they come in. How can you address that issue?
Is there a question? Okay.
How they can address the issue of the immigration officers not addressing the language barriers when people come into this country.
Okay, if we could start with the NDP response to that question. Which one of you would like to do that? Either of you? None of the above?
I mean, certainly I think it's important that we have to look at what kind of testing goes on, understanding language barriers as well. I mean, obviously we need to increase the number of translators that are available. We need to be able to make sure that everyone has all of the information possible. People can't make an informed decision if they don't know what they're making a decision about. And it's imperative on us as the country where they're moving to make sure that we provide them with that information, to make sure they know what kind of testing they're about to go through. And I think it's important that we focus on doing that. So certainly making sure that we have translators, honestly, from every language that we possibly can. Now, understandably, that may be difficult at times, but we really need to make sure we're doing our due diligence.
For the Liberals, Karen?
Everybody in this room represents civil society, and I'm going to answer your question just slightly differently. And we saw Kairos, which is an umbrella Christian organization, be defunded. This is a group that has a 30-year track record of outstanding service to not only new Canadians, but they have a footprint on the ground in so many places, one of them being Colombia, where they expose to the world human rights abuses. I think we should take specific note about this group because they were defunded by Bev Oda, who is the minister in charge of CETA, which is the International Development Agency. And the people that work at Kairos and are part of that, and, it's Mennonite Central Committee, it's United Church, it's my church, the Presbyterian Church of Canada, agonized over what they had done or how it could be that all of a sudden they didn't fit with the criteria that CETA had talked about. And it turns out that it was a political decision. But everybody should be aware that the political decision was based on the footprint in the ground that they had with some groups in the Middle East. And they were deemed politically to be a little bit anti-Semitic. Not Kairos, but this group that they had a partnership with. So that was a real reason. I also believe the other reason was that they were an umbrella group amongst Christian organizations. And the Conservative government and Mr. Harper do not like the strength of a united civil society. They're much happier dealing with the Mennonite Central Committee or the United Church of Canada or the Presbyterian Church of Canada. But when we come together as an umbrella group, all of a sudden civil society gets to look just a little bit scary. This should be a warning shot across the bow for all groups of civil society, because you're doing
Karen,
work
thanks.
that keeps the government honest.
Thank you. We can always come back to this issue when we open it up at the end. Yep, please go ahead.
Hi. I was born in this country, and I spent the most of my life here. And I still remember last year, in November of last year, I read the article in Maclean saying that there was a problem that the universities are, quote, too Asian, unquote. I think this is a very dangerous mentality, as it creates a mentality of second-class citizens, and this is the exact same notion which appeared in Germany in the 1920s when they're, quote,
Excuse me, the topic here is family reunification.
Yes.
Can you get to the question?
Okay, that was another question I had. Okay, so the first one. Sorry, I apologize.
That's okay.
So last night I met this student who's studying in Waterloo. He's pursuing a PhD in physics, and he's from Cuba. And he told me that he has the intention to immigrate to this country permanently, and obviously he'll be very productive. And so my question is how will you be assisting those from parts of the world where there's a serious problem such as Cuba?
Okay, thank you very much. Andrew?
Well, if somebody is here from
Use the mic, please.
If somebody is here from Cuba, they can apply to essentially for refugee status. And here comes the throwback to the question on the visas. But anybody from Cuba will, can apply and they'll get refugee status. So if you have people coming to Canada, and this is where the visa officers have problems, because I was talking to our people down in Havana, and I said, why is it so difficult for people from Cuba to get visa to Canada? And their answer to me was, because everybody who gets to Canada will want to become a refugee. And I said, who are these people that actually get to Canada? And he says, doctors, engineers, and the list goes on. And I said, well, if they do apply to be refugees, we're not doing that badly, because we actually need doctors in Canada and what have you, and they got too many of them in Cuba. But it touches back on the visa problem. And it's something that when I was in Parliament, all the parties really struggled with. And I think partly the solution is setting up some kind of quality control, because there's no quality control when you apply for a visa, say in India, and you get turned down. And, or you apply in Cuba and you get turned down. And we could put a quality control in place if the